If you're having trouble with your Bosch BGH96 furnace, you're getting E2 and E3 codes, there's a good chance that what's happening is you're having trouble with the condensate system. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a number of things that I learned along the way and what I believe the solution is going to be for this installation. So normally in most installations, I think what I've got here would be adequate for it to work, but I've got like an unusually long 3-inch system on the outside of this home. There's probably 7 feet of exposed 3-inch pipe, and where we're located, it's too cold outside and it's creating a lot of condensate that's just simply overwhelming this condensate trap on the bottom of the furnace here. So with this installation here, I was able to get from about 25 minutes of runtime maximum up to 45 by making these changes. It's just not good enough. So what are the things you need to do when you look at this? One is they recommend that you have a T close to where your air conditioner is draining off into. Like I've got a trap here, but they want a venting T so that if it blows through, it won't blow all the way through into the trap. So I could have put a T here, but then I wouldn't have been able to open the cover to the BMAC. This ideally should be plumbed into something like this, which I'll probably do afterwards, but I've got like a loop here to prevent the humidifier from blowing through. This is kind of an unusual humidifier. It's not connected to the return. It's got a fan in it, so it's under pressure and the drain could blow through. And previously I had these stack of fittings here, and this just kind of pushed in and just letting it drip in. But I showed a picture to the BMAC, or not the BMAC, the Bosch support, and they got back to me quite quickly, actually within like an hour and a half of working hours, saying that I gotta change what I've got there and put in a T so that this trap can breathe even more. So that's sort of for the install side. On the outside, in here, you want to have this elbow sloped down and no kinks. I'm not really a fan of the system, but it's a registered overall package, so we're kind of stuck with it. We aren't supposed to modify it. So it goes into the T's and into the trap. There is a product bulletin where they tell you that some of these these traps were made wrong back in like the early 2000s or early 2020, 2010. So basically, like, you need to have the inlets higher than the outlet, and for whatever reason, if you have like the arrow that says this side up, they've got the inlets way down here, so they put the cover on backwards. So just check the writing on your drain trap and make sure that it's correct. This machine's being converted to a side flow. There's instructions on how to do that, and they tell you how to cut your hoses and stuff. So one error that I made was that I used an electric chop saw to cut the 636 piping, and it puts a lot of dust and plastic junk into the pipes. So the first time the system was run for commissioning, it appeared like it was working correctly, but it actually, the plastic migrated through the trap in here. I'll show a video after the main video on what's inside of this thing. And all the plastic got caught in the elbow here, and it wasn't allowing any flow through. So it's recovering here from the getting shut down. I'm just going to give it another go. It may still have a bunch of water in the inducer fan. It may or may not start correctly. I'm just looking on the Ecobee here for something. Yeah, so it's not really showing that it shut down. It appears like it's continuing to carry on. But it's not good for this thing to keep loading up the inducer fan with water and shutting down. I think this thing should be able to run continuously in the cold of the winter, right? So, again, I recommend probably using a handsaw to cut this pipe. It's the 3 inches a bit too thick to use a circular pipe cutter. It's just a bit of a bear to do it. Like with 4-inch ABS, I used to put in sewer lines all the time and use a circular cutter. It leaves a bit of a ridge on the inside, but it wasn't a problem cutting it, but I can't get through this PVC with the cutter very well. Another thing they do is they tell you to prime this line. Otherwise, what's going to happen is if this trap's not primed and you don't have your venting right, you're going to start seeing it's blowing bubbles in the bottom of this condensate box. So the water level will rise and it'll trip out and you'll see bubbles coming out of this drain rather than the drain actually working. So you have to prime this line. So I've done everything that they've said to do. I've had this black piping off several times and cleaned it, and it's all good. I can't see anything that I've done wrong. So we're going to add a drain to the flue pipe here. So you can add this drain, like if you have a 2-inch flue or a 3-inch flue, power vent, whatever you want to call it, you can rig this up, stick that in there. I got a 2-inch pipe here. That is not an appropriate elbow for doing a vent. I'm not sure how I ended up with that. That doesn't fit. This is like 1.5 inches. So they give you a solvent bushing, and you can put that in there. So if you had a 2-inch T, you would use that stack up, or you could use this stack up here. That would work for you. So $50 gets you like the 10 feet of hose. Now you do need to do a loop in that, similar to this. Like you need a nice big loop. IPEX doesn't even give you instructions on how to do this thing, so I'm just going to give like a nice 8-inch loop. Should be adequate. So I got to break into this pipe here, put the drain in, then I'm going to take advantage of this drain here. So I've got that and that. It's kind of hokey. It's not how I wanted this to work out, but it'll be vented correctly. And this little drain that's coming off of the pipe here will have just to manage anything that sneaks by the main system. So you can see in here perhaps what it looks like. So you can see what the uphill side versus the downhill side. And then you need to use the System 636 glue, right? You have to use the primer, and then you use their special glue on top of that. So I'm going to have to shut this system down and get this put in. It's going to be the coldest night of the year here, possibly. And this system needs to work right. There's been too many revisits to try to make this drain work. So today is the day that this is going to have to work correctly. So the trap there is being installed. You can see I put a nice big loop here and then a vented drain. So hopefully that works. We're going to see that in a minute. So to do the work here, I just used a carpenter type saw, PVC plastic saw, and used the correct glue and primer. Use the wrench there to open up the bottles after they get glued together. And the bottom of that little drain point is sealed, so to cut off the cap, I just used this thing. That's an easy way to do it rather than trying to use a knife and probably cutting a finger off. And then I did have to take that drain elbow out just so I could get access to the piping here. So this is what the elbow looks like. So when you're on a horizontal position, you're draining from this hole facing you, and this piece just gets shoved up against the pipe in there, and hopefully the water drains into it. And then when it's sitting on its back, they're hoping that the water is either draining through that hole or that hole. So you'd want that elbow kind of cocked down a little bit in hopes that the water is going out. I guess you wouldn't want it cocked out, because then this would be pointing up. So you want to have it pointed down. But anyway, you get the point, depending on the configuration. So we'll whip this back together here, and we're going to see some floaters show up in here. I couldn't get the pipe completely cleaned out. It's a bit annoying when it's already half assembled. So let's give this thing a go. Because we've had the system running for about 20 minutes now, and the drain's working like as intended. It's kind of hard to see the water in there, but the water level is at the loop here, loop height. And what it happens is like the water kind of comes through and drips and drabs. It's not like a continuous thing. It must kind of wait until it gets to some point where it condenses all along the pipe. Then the pipe starts to drain out, and then there's like a rush of water that comes down, and it goes through the drain. I'm not getting any overfilling or bubbling of the condensate box. I do like that it's a clear box. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I didn't really mention it, but the reason like I felt like the water was waterlogging the inducer fan here is that you would hear water in the fan, and if you were to pull this off, you could get the water to pour out from this hole, and then you could stick it back on and it would run like nothing ever happened. It would kind of clear itself out. But if you didn't do that, eventually it would shut down like you saw. You would have to drain from down here and from here, and then you try to run it, it would trip out. To clear itself out, it would run again. But eventually it's going to lock itself out. It's just not working correctly, right? So, like I said, we're going to get an hour out of this thing, and hopefully we're at that point where we're confident that it's going to work, because the problem is, like, this system was installed back in June, so you do a run on it, and everything's kind of fine. I guess it was July, and everything is fine. You can't run it for like an hour in the middle of the summer. And throughout the fall, the heat pump is doing its job and everything is working fine. And the heat pump started to have problems keeping up kind of when you got down to about -12 to -15, depending on which thermostat you're using in the area. The best thermostat is actually on the condenser. You got to open it to see what the temperature is. So anyway, that's sort of where we're at. We're just kind of watching the water come through. That drain is working. This drain is working down here. And to date here, we haven't heard any noise of water in the fan, which is good. Because like my last concern was that maybe the water, somehow the fan is like sucking it right out of the heat exchanger and waterlogging itself. But it doesn't appear to be the case. But we shall continue to monitor this, and then I'll have hopefully a final recap and a sign off here in the next little while. Alright, so I'm happy to say this is a success. So we've ran for an hour now, and I haven't heard any droplets of water hitting the inducer fan. So it is time to shut this thing back down and kind of do a recap here. So in most cases, you probably won't have to go through the adding the extra condensate drain, and you do need to tilt the furnace according to the Bosch instructions. With the side flow, you tilt it forwards, and I believe with the upflow you would also tilt it forwards as well to get the water to come out of the drain up there. It would be in a different configuration. So you want to slope your drains and put them in according to how they explained it in the manual. Putting these 90s rather in here is kind of annoying. I put them in so that the 90s protrude through the case. That way it prevents any kinking of the lines. And yeah, I'm not really a fan of that, but it seems to work, as I haven't tried to redesign it after so many years. But this is the first time I've commissioned one of these furnaces from Bosch. So they do want you to have a breather, so you want to go into a T in your condensate drain. Depending where you're at, you might need a neutralizer in your drain. And then they want you to have a vent for your BMAC or whatever coil you've got as well, so that it's not blowing through the drain. Because what will happen is you'll see bubbling of condensate here from air coming in through the trap the wrong way. You need to prime the trap. You can use a turkey baster to prime these, or you can just use a big squeeze bottle. Looks a little maybe more professional than a turkey baster. Your call. And I guess just keep trying until you get it right. This has been a tough one for me. I usually get things figured out easier than this, but you got to keep working at it till you get it right. And I think that's about it. So hopefully you've learned something from this. Hopefully I've saved you a bunch of time and frustration, and thank you for watching.